The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
There is a reincarnation machine that somehow our souls are trapped on this planet, and this reincarnation machine, whatever it is, keeps us locked in to this cycle. So as soon as you lose your physical vessel, you would be immediately trapped in your spiritual form by the energy that emanates from this machine, and you would be sucked back into the need to reincarnate. That's what some people believe. I am not sure if I agree with that belief, but it's something something that has been presented with some at least tangential evidence, circumstantial evidence of that. A lot of people would say that the reptilians, which are they're both physical, but they're also spiritual beings, they are also astral beings, they could be involved in the creation and the maintenance of these reincarnation machine, if there is such a thing. So the reptilians could be behind this prison for our soul, and if not directly responsible, but they could be, perhaps they could be the ones operating these devices.
You've said we live in a matrix, a holographic projection in a multidimensional matrix with an infinite number of universes. So, how do we escape being stuck in this matrix? And the first question really begins at the end. What happens to us when we die and our soul leaves the body?
What we are is this state of awareness having an experience, a series of experiences, through this body lens which focuses our attention in this band of frequency. And all that happens at death is that vehicle ceases to function, ceases to be that, if you like, computer decoder of this reality. And that which has been observing through it leaves. And that's what happens with near-death experiences. I mean, you look at the millions and millions of people now.
Also talk about we are living in a matrix. So if a lot of people who died or were, well, declared dead after an accident or something and saw their own body, they all say practically the same thing, that they went to this tunnel of light, and they went into this great white light frequency. And if they were a Christian, they saw Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha or whatever, but it was a feeling of bliss, something incredible. And then they could choose to reincarnate again and go back in another body on Earth. Is that like a reincarnation recycling factory, as some people are talking about now, like a fake kind of keeping souls in the matrix?
Well, I have read about this, and I have written about this, and I've read accounts of people about their experiences. And it's my conclusion over many years that reincarnation is a trap It's not that it doesn't exist, although I don't think it's quite the same as it's explained. It's a bit more subtle, maybe, but I do think it's a trap. And you see, when I was writing my last book, Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told, I looked at when reincarnation began, when it became a concept. And it became a concept within only a few thousand years. And as I write in other books and I talk about in the talks, there's very clearly, this has come from, mainstream academics, there's very clearly a point about 6,000 years ago, 4,000 BC, when humanity changed dramatically. It changed dramatically in a way that cannot be explained by what they call evolutionary explanations that take what we call time happening.
If it is a trap, could that be what you have described as archons?
Yeah.
Who are part of trapping this? And please describe what is an archon. Is an archon the same as a demiurge or a jinn or a demon or an angel? What are all those things?
What I have been suggesting now since the early turn of the millennium is that we live in the equivalent of a virtual reality computer game. It's not a coincidence that the physics of computer games and the mathematics of computer games mirror the physics and mathematics of this world. What have we been talking about? The real I is awareness, a state of awareness, which becomes embodied and then experiences through a vehicle, till the vehicle ends its cycle and then it leaves, what we call death. Although it seems like it, there is no physical.
No.
This is not physical. Quantum
Because it's atoms. Huh?
Yeah, but atoms have no solidity.
Yeah.
Atoms have no solidity, so how can they make a physical world? They don't. Why? Because there isn't a physical world. It's holographic.
And that's why I talk about the holographics.
And the holographic world that appears to be outside of us actually only exists in here when we decode it from an energetic information source in exactly the same way, in principle, as a computer decodes from Wi-Fi, completely different form of information, into what we see on the screen.
Or a cell phone without a cord.
Our screen, this, is here. So even the physical is a diversion, it's not really there. But the thing is that this simulation is holding us in a perceptual servitude. And basically at the 5 sense level of awareness, that's where we're really talking about with this simulation. However, if there was a situation where you left the body and immediately, no matter what perceptual state you were in when you left, you realized what the game was, well, you're not going to keep, if you like, refilling your simulation, are you? People are going to leave and say, crikey, bloody hell.
But could these archons trap you then even?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm going on to say. So, what I think reincarnation is, and again, the archon writings by the Gnostics support this, is that it's not just at the level we call physical, 5 sense, this world, that the simulation operates, but other levels as well. So if you leave the body and you are not in an expanded state of consciousness, then your perception will hold you in a low vibrational state, which will stop you leaving other levels of this, quote, matrix. And it's from those other levels that this reincarnation cycle comes. The Gnostics wrote about this, as well as many other people over the ages. But if you leave the body in an expanded state, in awareness of what you are...
You can go back to what source, people call God.
Where you can go is beyond the matrix. And what lies there is infinity of possibility. See, when I spent a lot of time reading these texts from the Gnostics, from Egypt, that were supposed to have been put in this earthen jar about maybe 400 BC. The writings are said to go back maybe to 100 BC. Sorry, AD, and 400 AD. I was interested to read the descriptions of them when they were, after they were found in Egypt in 1945, where they're describing archons and their base state being consciousness and energy in their base state, which absolutely fits what I'm saying. But this is what they said.
Well, demonic?
Yeah,
or
but what they said was, yes, basically.
Negative.
Very,
not a positive frequency.
No, very negative. But what they said in these writings is that the archons can take form, and the two forms they use the most are reptilian. This is long after I've been talking about the reptilians, and a form that looks like a grey fetus, as we would call it, with big black eyes. Consciousness has to change, because the consciousness that we've been in has created the world that we live in. Consciousness that we can go into will create a very different world. It's not for a laugh and a bit of fun that this global network works 24/7 to hold us in a perceptual servitude state. It's because without it, they cannot control us.
The electronic force screen is designed to detect ISBs and prevent them from leaving the area. If an ISB attempts to penetrate the force screen, it captures them in a kind of electronic net. The result is that the captured ISB is subjected to very severe brainwashing treatment, which erases the memory of the ISB. This process uses a tremendous electrical shock, just like the Earth psychiatrists use electrical shock therapy to erase the memory and personality of a patient and to make them more cooperative. On Earth, this therapy uses only a few hundred volts of electricity. However, the electrical voltage used by the old Empire operation against ISBs is on the order of magnitude of billions of volts. This tremendous shock completely wipes out all the memory of the ISB. The memory erasure is not just for one life or one body. It wipes out all the accumulated experiences of a nearly infinite past, as well as the identity of the ISB. The shock was intended to make it impossible for the ISB to remember who they are, where they came from, their knowledge or skills, their memory of the past, and ability to function as a spiritual entity. They are overwhelmed into becoming a mindless, robotic non-entity. After the shock, a series of post-hypnotic suggestions are used to install false memories and a false time orientation in each ISB. This includes the command to return to the base after the body dies, so that the same kind of shock and hypnosis can be done again and again and again forever. What the domain learned from the experience of this officer is that the old empire has been using Earth as a prison planet for a very long time. Exactly how long is unknown, perhaps millions of years. So when the body of the ISB dies, they depart from the body. They are detected by the force screen, they are captured, and ordered by hypnotic command to return to the light. The idea of heaven and the afterlife are part of the hypnotic suggestion, a part of the treachery which makes the whole mechanism work. After the ISB has been shocked and hypnotized to erase the memory of the life just lived, the ISB is immediately commanded hypnotically to report back to the Earth as though they were on a secret mission to inhabit a new body. Each ISB is told that they have a special purpose for being on Earth, but of course there is no purpose for being in a prison, at least not for the prisoner.
There is no case. There never was. It's all just a big joke. It's a joke.
The reptilians do not just want to profit off of war or treatment of diseases they cause. They want us to die, but they do not want us to know what happens when we die. Religion tells us the wicked go to hell, and the good go to heaven. Heaven and hell exist, but not the way religion teaches. Heaven describes higher levels of dimensions, and hell describes the lower realms. We are living in the lower realms. If you understand history, you know you cannot trust any so-called holy book. Religion is a tool of the elite to separate humanity and corrupt spirituality. Some like to back up their false beliefs with the phenomenon known as near-death experiences, where people see a light, loved ones, heaven, God, and Jesus when they are near death. Scientists like to say it is nothing but a hallucination brought out by the chemical DMT excreted by the brain at the moment of death, or near death, but they are wrong. The fact is our bodies are nothing but organic machinery. They are containers for our souls, allowing us to live, or be trapped as slaves in this matrix. This matrix we are trapped in is one of many, possibly limitless, dimensions of the universe. When we die, our soul, consciousness or spirit, call it what you will, leaves this dimension and enters another. We never really die. Our souls are pure energy and, according to physics, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. There is much evidence for reincarnation. There are stories where children claim to have been another person who has died and can remember specific parts of that individual's lives. One thing to understand is the Earth is not solid, and does not have a molten core, like mainstream science suggests. The reason it is important to understand the structure of the Earth is because of the fact that Earth's environment has a magnetic field surrounding it. If there is no molten iron core generating this field, one thing you must ask yourself is, where does it come from? This magnetic field is artificial, created by the reptilians. It keeps souls, our energy, from escaping the environment we are trapped in. It is generated by the reptilians as a soul trap. This field is the net Peggy Kane and others speak of. Our souls are nothing to them but a cheap source of energy to power their slave machine. When you die, you are trapped here. There is no escape. When a person dies, they are still alive, but live in an environment in which reptilians abuse the dead. They torture and feed off of our energy after we die. There is not much higher, or interdimensional, beings, who we call angels or Pleiadians, can do. As soon as a being descends to this environment, it cannot leave. A soul's memories are erased before they are sent back to Earth to incarnate. The entire planet is a soul trap. According to Peggy Kane, now that people are having more near-death experiences, due to the fact we are able to resuscitate people, the reptilians must work to create a staged heaven in order to deceive a dying person. This is how people see what they think they see in their near-death experiences. I believe the machine used to send souls back to Earth, which Peggy Kane speaks of, is the moon. Davidic tells us it is a hollowed-out planetoid spaceship controlled by the reptilians. I believe, in the dimension our souls enter at death, the moon is used to erase our memories and send a soul back to Earth, which is why most of the population cannot remember a thing of their past lives. There is little a higher being can do for humanity. Once any soul enters this environment, they are trapped with no way out. They are taken and their memories are erased. They will not remember what they came to Earth for.
Phenomena that we call reincarnation is true. There's no doubt about that. But it's very tricky. A very, very powerful man that I knew, who was a dear friend of mine, okay? And I'm talking about top of the line in this country.
Right.
A very powerful man. He told me that he had died. He said, I'll tell you, Jordan, experience I had about 5 years ago. This was back in the 90s. He said, I died. I was on the operating table, and I died. And he said, and when I died, I felt myself come out of my body. And I felt just fine. And I could hear everybody. I could see what they're doing. I'm watching everything, and everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off because my flat line, and everybody's trying to save me. I don't need to be saved. I feel fine. I'm just watching all you people running around. And he said, all of a sudden, he told me, all of a sudden I felt myself going backwards into a vortex. And I had no control over it. It was sucking me into a vortex. And he said, I went down a long tube, and I could see a light, and as I was going, there was all kinds of colors as I was spinning around in this tube. This is what this old man told me. And he said that when I came out, there was an angel that met me. When I came out of the tube, an angel met me and said, turn around, you go back. You're not supposed to be here. Turn around and go back. And he said, why? And he said, because one of ours is down there, and you have to go help him. So turn around, you got a job to do. And he said, I felt without any, I didn't do it. It was automatic. I just got sucked back into the vortex, and I went back down through and back down through until I came back into the operating room. And he says, I came back as I started going in my body, consciously. I came back and I was looking around, and I saw everybody running around. And then when I felt myself go back into my body, everybody started running around because now my vital signs are coming back. I'm coming back into my body.
That's very similar to what a lot of people have said.
Yeah. All the major religions of the world teach a reincarnation. And it makes sense to me if you are a spirit and living in a human body, a physical body. So the question I asked a long time ago, what are we? Are we a human body that's the home of a spirit living in it? Or were we a spirit to begin with who came into this world and took on a human body? So what are you really? Are you a spirit or are you a physical body? And so now I know. I mean, logic alone tells me that you're a physical body. But I've heard lectures by scientists and doctors who explain what does the brain do? The brain is not what you think it is. If you put a table with 50 brains taken from 50 different people and you just put the brains on the table, you're not going to be able to tell anybody from anybody because all the brains look the same. You don't even know the difference between a male and a female. They all look the same.
So it's all in the soul. It's all in the spirit.
That's right.
Personality.
That's right. Personality is in the spirit world. And the scientist I heard explaining this was a lady scientist, and it was very interesting. She said the question was, what does the brain actually do? And she said, we now know that the brain does only one thing only. It creates and allows for movement. It controls the movement of the brain, the movement of the hands, all of your body functions, where you go, what you're doing. The brain is controlling that. But she said, but where does your creativity, your spiritual self, where does that come from? Your imagination and dreams at night, where does that come from? And she said, we know positively it does not come from the brain. It does not. The brain is physical for the physical body. But you and your spiritual self and who you are and what you think is funny and what you think is evil and what you see and what you believe, that's not in your brain.
Many researchers talk about the reptilian net, or that's the name they give it. Is that an analogy for our consciousness? Sort of, we get beyond the net once we sort of become consciously aware, or is it a physical net that stops souls sort of exiting and reincarnating?
The machine that creates that net is physical. There is a machine or a set of boosters which create that energetic field. A net's quite a good word. I called it the grid, but I can go with the word net. I think the net's probably better because when we talk about the grid, I know lots of researchers get confused with the Earth's own grid. But we're talking now about an artificial grid that's generated around the planet by very, very physical machines, but create an unseen energetic field which captures any soul from leaving the planet, or nearly any soul from leaving the planet, and also prevents any soul from entering the planet, wipes that soul's memory completely clear, and then that soul is placed back into another body. Now the reason for that is very, very simple. Let's take a great man, Albert Einstein. Imagine Albert Einstein living till he was 90, dying, reincarnating in another body, and remembering every experiment he'd ever done. Do you know, within 3 Albert Einstein's lifetimes, we'd be going to, Jupiter and back in a bus. And so if you have a situation where you wish to keep humans under control, you cannot allow them to remember what they've done. Now, how can a 5-year-old child be a grand master at chess or a beautiful artist or play the piano? What's happened there is the soul that's gone into that child hasn't been completely wiped, and it has remembered. And aren't they called prodigal children, or the wonderful children? The reality, of course, is science doesn't want to face the truth, which is the soul that incarnated in that child is regaining its memory. So it's not infallible. There are people who don't get their memories completely wiped. You have to understand that most reptilians will look on humans as the lowest of the low. When dealing with military, they have a first interaction protocol where the humans have to bow to them. After that, they don't have to do that because they've already shown their subservience to them. If you look at very wealthy bloodline families, the reptilians look on them as not equals, but as the anointed ones of power. So they don't have to bow generally. For instance, if a Rothschild grouping, the alien will have the reptile will have the head chair. There'll be a beautiful carved chair somewhere, and that's where he will sit, and then the family will sit round. They don't have to bow at that point, but there will be a ceremonial point where they have to do the bowing. But you're really talking to me about ordinary Joe or Josephine in the house, and the reptilian comes in. That's very rare. That's incredibly rare. Reptiles do not generally come into a house to waste their time with a human. They'll send a grey. But where a reptile does come down, it's because that individual is so important that it requires an interaction from the high level. Again, it depends on that individual. What is that person to them? What is that person to humanity? And they have, for want of a better word, time machines where they can predict ahead what each person will do. And if they see a person as a threat to them, they will attempt to come along, interact with them, and send them off on a different course. There are many, many psychic men and women on the planet who, if left to their own devices, will be incredibly beneficial. And so what the system will do is try and target a disruptive male to get involved with a female or vice versa, and to make that person's life hell. Everything and anything to make somebody not think about themselves. So it's all part and parcel of what happens. What will a reptile do? Well, a reptile will come in, and generally it won't disguise itself heavily, because if it's come to meet somebody, that person is considered important enough for them to be there, and they'll only disguise themselves to prevent that human freaking out. The DNA, all the DNA is a memory. It's a race memory. The memory of that individual, and this is interesting because so the DNA, if it's properly hooked up, can produce pictures. It can produce a video film, because the DNA is a memory. The DNA is the history of that individual, but more than that, the history of that race encapsulated. And so it's only when you regain that, you regain what you lost. And this is what people don't understand, because the human race does go back a very long time, and there are gifts that we have which need to be activated by the DNA. And once that DNA is activated, then we will have our memory and we will know who we are. And this is the whole point of ascension. You know, I never went with the New Age stuff of ascension in the sense of the word. Ascension to me is humans getting back to what they always were.
People don't understand or realize or gasp. They don't get what has happened. And I'm not trying to build a story here. All I'm trying to say is, hey people, hey you guys, everybody that's listening to this program, okay? You people have been told for a minimum of 6,000 years total incorrect information from medical, from science, from history, from astronomy, from mathematics, you name it. Everything you've told.
Yes.
It's not.
I really appreciate you. Yes.
This is a lie.
Man is a star bound to a body until in the end he is freed through his strife. Only struggle and toiling thy utmost shall the star within thee bloom out in new life. He who knows the commencement of all things, free is his star from the realms of night. Remember, O man, that all which exists is only another form of that which exists not. Everything that has being is passing into yet other being, and thou thyself art not an exception. Consider the law, for all is law. Seek not that which is not of the law, for such exist only in the illusions of the senses. Wisdom cometh to all her children, even as they cometh unto wisdom. All through the ages the light has been hidden. Awake, O man, and be wise.